Thanks, Darla. I guess I'll start and give a really brief kind of introduction for the group, and then I'll turn it over to Chris Ham and Kevin Braun, who are here for this item this evening. These applications were submitted back in February of 2024. There were 3 applications that were submitted. Conditional use application, which is for the planned residential development master plan, which establishes the lot sizes, it establishes the proposed setbacks, and basically it sets forth the approval for which the housing plan can then proceed. It's in the RD zoning district of Union Township, housing developments such as this are they're a conditional use of that zoning district. They're different from traditional single-family residential in that regard. So the conditional use approval basically allows for a planned housing development on this parcel as that land use in lieu of a traditional single-family type of use. That's the reason for the conditional use application that was submitted in February. Together with the conditional use application were 2 additional applications that were submitted. The first was the subdivision application for phase 1 and the land development application for phase 1. So basically, the subdivision and land development, when taken together, sets forth the lots on the parcel, identifies any and all public improvements which would be built, the roadways, the water lines, the sanitary sewers, the storm sewers, and those items which would then be turned over to either Union Township to own and maintain as infrastructure in the future, or they'd be turned over to Peters Creek Sanitary Authority for the sewer system, and the water system obviously would become property of Pennsylvania American Water Company, who's the water provider for this township. So with that, the conditional use hearing for this project and for these applications was held last week on April 15th here in this township building here. And now at this time, after a number of time extensions from the developer working back and forth, we've reached the point where the developer is ready to present this subdivision and land development and conditional use to Union Township Planning Commission and then to the Board of Supervisors for a final decision. So with that, Chris, and Kevin, I'll turn it over to you guys, let you introduce yourselves and give us some details on your proposal here.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. My name is Kevin Braun. I own the company that will be developing the ground, and Mr. Ham is the engineer that has worked very closely with the township over the last
5-6 years.
few years. So we're pleased to be here tonight. Wanted to just, since it's been so long, just sort of review sort of what Chris is going to show you, and then we'll obviously take as many questions as you all would like to pose to us. We, the Mineral Beach residential subdivision, we're looking for approval for phase 1 only, which is 75 lots. It will be serviced off of Walter Long Road, which I think all of you know we've had a journey to get to where we have that plan, the Walter Long Road plan recorded now. And then we do have an emergency access that will come off through the Lasanti property on Beach Drive, right? Mm-hmm. And so that would only be used in the matter of if there was a circumstance or situation where Walter Long Road would be blocked off for any reason whatsoever. There would be an emergency for fire trucks, ambulances, or whatnot to get into the community for safety reasons. But I think that's kind of the general overview. 75 lots, we're going to be serviced on Walter Long Road. And we want to put up one of the overall plans here so I can kind of the planning commission.
Do we have any new maps? Cause I think the last one I had still had the pickleball courts, and I know you were saying at the meeting the other night that there is no pickleball courts anymore, so I didn't know, yeah, if you
Yeah,
had,
the pickleball court was right.
Can we move this up a little bit closer so we can see?
yeah.
Everyone can see that? Yes. So, got a pickleball court, where we moved that.
The pickleball court was located at lot, what is now called lot 135.
Okay,
Let's acclimate, Rick.
Yeah.
88,
88.
Walter Long, church, manufacturing.
The old pole.
Yeah.
Probably the best landmark out there. So what we did was we actually changed the pickleball court to a lot, eliminated one of the lots. I can show you on phase 2. It's actually lot 201 up here was actually a lot originally in phase 1, but we moved that to phase 2, so just to keep 75 lots. The number of lots have not changed for phase 1 in 4 years. It's also what the sewage planning module has been approved for, with 75 lots through Peters Creek. Peters Creek's reviewed the planning module, the DEP's reviewed the planning module, which already been approved. Peters Creek reviewed all the sanitary plans. They have not changed in 3 or 4 years. So
and this is all phase 1, this is, or, that's phase 1.
this is phase 1. We come basically all of Sands Lane, which comes down to Beach Road. Then we come up the hill on Mineral Beach Boulevard to the intersection. To the west is the first port at Sunset Lane, that is a cul-de-sac. And then just a little bit of going to the east.
This is future.
That's
This is
the
phase
future.
2.
That would be phase 2.
And so the access will be, from 88 up Walter Long to here, and then we're, as I think the planning commission knows, we're doing a lot of work to Walter Long Road to improve it, to township specifications.
As Kevin mentioned, working with the church and the Long Brothers, it was a 50-foot minimum right away the whole way up Water Long, and most places it's actually wider. The way we laid it out was we went from center line to Water Long Road 25 feet into the church property, so the edge of right of way is no closer than 25 feet from the center line of road anywhere, so it gives everything plenty of room. We'll be putting a cul-de-sac up at the top of the church, turn around for plow trucks and anything else that needs turned around, because it will be built to township standards.
Can we show them that on the other?
This is Water Long Road coming up.
Okay,
The gate for Water Long is actually right about here, the
okay,
Long Brothers. This right here is the access drive that goes up to the church, the current parking lot. We'll be actually just below that. Kind of work that location out with the church through the process that they like the cul-de-sac here because they do use this lower section for overflow parking whenever it's at least dry. So they'll be able to just come right off the cul-de-sac into their, kind of their overflow parking.
okay.
As far as township plow trucks and so forth, they'll be able to go up and turn around in the cul-de-sac.
Does the township service that now?
No.
Which road?
I think Walter Long Manufacturing does, don't they?
No, it's a private road.
Yeah, it's-
That's okay.
Yeah, technically, Water Long Road and
Loxham?
Blossom, just kidding.
Yeah.
After 6 years, I still
Yeah.
think they're right, are both technically private roads. Water Long will become public township the whole way to the top.
Okay.
Where is the emergency access road?
Do you have it on there?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Part of that one might be best. Backspace. Maybe not. Oh, I'm sorry. It's
I was
actually
gonna
this
say, I
one.
thought you had it.
It's actually this one. This is the current beach.
Oh, shit.
We do that on purpose to make sure that you're paying
And
attention.
make sure everybody's awake.
Right.
This is the current beach house restaurant. The emergency access will come basically down, which is called Beach Road. It's the old road that they used to use to access the pavilions and everything up on top. As we brought up during the conditional use, there'll be a gate put across there with a knock box, and typically 2 or 3 members of the HOA, usually the HOA president and several other members have keys to it. And whoever the township deems needing the key, the fire chief, police chief, even one left here, they all have it so they can access it.
I do wanna make a comment on that though, that and I don't know at what point we would discuss this with you all, and Mr. Stevens as well. I'm not a proponent of the gate. We ran into a situation in another municipality where we put the gate and there was an emergency. And so the fire truck pulls up, excuse me, an ambulance. The ambulance pulls up and is like, who's got the key?
Yeah,
So they just blew right through it.
okay.
So that's why I'm not a proponent of the gate. I will say that what we did instead is put the collapsible bollards, is that how you say it? Bollards? So that you can't drive a car through because there's enough to block it, but if there's a true emergency, they just plow right over them and they collapse, which is more than, I think it's a little more, because if there is a gate there and people don't know all about it and you are an emergency vehicle driver, your first inclination is gonna be stop at the gate, not get to the emergency, so.
Yeah, so.
But that's for later, but I just wanna sort of bring that up,
Yeah.
as a point.
There's a similar scenario going on in a Boyka plant, and I understand it's electronic. The emergency responders have an electronic thing that actually unlocks it and the gate goes open.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not
Yeah.
something you have to drive
To
over.
drive
The electronics always worry me a little bit, because.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if there's a power outage?
Well, I would also think,
Yeah.
what's the chances of the same ambulance coming?
So,
Fire trucks, you're never gonna be the same.
yeah, I mean, I think
But,
like Mr. Brown mentioned, he's pretty open to what the township wants to see there.
Okay,
sure.
yeah.
If I may interject real quick, that was a lengthy discussion point during the conditional use hearing last week. And some recognition that, Mr. Braun and his group are planning to rely upon the existing easement that comes across, the Mineral Beach, or the Beach House Restaurant property there, preserving the easement that's there now, and then extinguishing the easement beyond the property line on his property so that he can set up his plan of lots, basically. And I think, as a condition of moving ahead with this, we definitely need that clarification and that detail as to what exactly is going to happen right there at the emergency access, and how do we prevent vehicles from parking on the beach house side of it, and not allowing, it's one thing if they plow through the bollards, but
Right.
if they have a
12 cars there.
a large crowd
Yeah.
at the beach house that day.
Not so much the beach house, but the,
Tiki bar.
tiki bar.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and what we talked about in the hearing, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, was that there may need to be some type of agreement there that details exactly, the purpose for the easement that's getting preserved and the purpose for vacating the easement that's there, and that's something that needs to get worked out between those property owners so that they know that emergency access can really function the way it's intended to in perpetuity.
Because I would assume right now that that easement is with Lisanti and Crown Castle.
That's right.
Yeah, can we show them?
Yeah.
The planning
So-
commission?
We
Master
would
plan
need an
commission.
easement.
I don't know if I have a good, like I said, this one shows the best, it comes all the way down to 88.
And we're all familiar.
Okay.
We're all familiar
Yeah.
with it, yeah.
So my understanding is you have an agreement with the property owners that you can use this as a access road, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. When's that dated, TJ, the one?
Yeah, Kevin handed this to me, and I actually don't have this in my file, so that's, this is dated April 5th of 2024, so a little over a year ago. It's a letter from Joe Lasanti to the Union Township supervisors stating that, quote, please use this note as my confirmation that I have previously given permission to use my property as shown on the approved plans and plat for Mineral Beach as emergency access. End quote.
I personally would feel more comfortable if this was notarized. So that it would-
Oh, yeah, we'll get the recorded easement, yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and my next question is, what happens in the unfortunate event he passes away?
I think that's, once everything gets, at least through this point, I think that's when Joe wants to make, I'm not speaking for Joe, but I'm guessing he doesn't want to create an easement until we get a little bit closer to the finish line to have an easement floating around out there.
Okay.
But I do understand wanting a formal easement.
Yes.
Thank you.
So,
But I think that was a condition, I'm sorry.
where is the old Mineral Beach swimming pool located?
Right about here.
Okay. So, where you have all your development is on strip mine.
It's on the back here, real clear, this back one.
It's complicated.
Because beyond the original barrier or the beach, that whole area, your configuration, without actually walking it, has been strip mined back on that whole roadway and development area.
Yeah, we've had extensive, prior to even us KDH getting involved in this, had extensive geotech out there, and there's a very extensive geotech report on how the dirt needs to be moved and replaced.
Well, it was just dumped in, it wasn't
Yeah.
impacted by.
That's why there's items in there if we do find and come back to fill over
And
excavation.
it comes back a certain distance till you hit the overburden where it wasn't, either was already mined or didn't pay to take it out.
Mhm. Like I said, that's where our geotech report plus we'll have on site.
Plus, I
That
do
was
believe
actually
that your whole development, because it was stripped between the other lots that you done own, to the roadway, those are all, this was all stripped, that was nothing but a swamp down there.
Yep,
And then it also, the strip cut probably, the old one, probably came into where you're entering Walter Lawn and wrapped around the configuration of the hillside.
This way.
that whole property on the corner is Phil. I used to own it, and I know it's Phil. Junk,
Okay,
before we got there.
so whatever. That's up to you to deal with.
Yeah, and like mentioned, we do have the geo, and obviously with the amount of money that Kevin's putting into it, we'll take special care to make sure it doesn't move.
The only place it moves is down.
So the beach is actually, the old pool is actually your retention pond.
It's in the vicinity, it'll completely come, it's going to be removed, but that's pretty much that's kind of.
Yeah. It's in that general area, and then all the concrete and so forth will be
Right,
removed.
right.
Yeah, the actual retention pond's probably about, if I had to guess, about twice the size.
The old beach, the 8-foot end of it sits on a coal seam. I know that.
As far as dirt moving and everything, we do already have our NPDS permit from Washington County, Conservation District. They have signed off on stormwater, all the earth moving, all the ENS controls, including water along.
So, how close is your development to the creek that's piped in that area?
That is down here, so we're not, our pond gets a little bit closer, but we're higher up, a little bit higher up than that, but that portion you're actually talking about is technically on the front portion of the.
On Sandy's.
on the-
Right, but you still have to have a setback line from center of that, structure.
Mhm. Yeah, and that was all reviewed by both the Washington County and DEP.
And what about the Army Corps of Engineers, cause I've dealt with them in the past, and they specified the distance.
They do, that's kind of the DEP steps in up to a certain point, and they act as the Army Corps' representative, unless it gets so much, it gets so large, then it goes to what they call a joint permit, which is the DEP and the Army Corps, then they bring the Army Corps in. But up to, for this size, it was able to stay just with the DEP, because it falls under their delegation from the Army Corps to review and permit.
At the Sands Lane turnaround, to the right
Mhm.
by 125, there is we don't know what this is. I don't know
What are you looking at?
what they explain this.
That's the access drive down to the pond.
That's the access.
Yeah, it's for, maintenance, mowing.
Right. We just didn't know what it was.
That's just the access drive
Okay.
going down to the pond, not a walking trail or anything like that. It's, yeah.
Open space, so the open space would be where the pond is.
Yeah, the open space, the pond is technically an open space. The HOA will own anything on this plan that's referred to as open space. That will be controlled and maintained by the HOA.
Is the pond to be a dry pond, or is it gonna have water,
It is a dry pond.
with no saturation characteristics in it?
Yeah.
This one, actually, we had to design as what they call an MRC because the infiltration was very, very low. So when you design it with an MRC, basically, there's a small orifice at the bottom that kind of mimics infiltration, but releases the last,
Sure.
basically up to the 2 year at a very, very slow rate. It's a policy that the DEP's developed mostly more for Western Pennsylvania because a lot of places we don't have soil that will infiltrate. Anybody that's trying to perk a house would probably.
Right.
But yeah, this pond is designed to, after the end of a rainstorm, it should completely de-water within 72 hours.
And what's the discharge, diameter of the discharge pipe on the pond?
I believe, off the top of my head, it's 18-inch, but it's actually, we're releasing at a slower rate for an overall development than what the precondition released to the stream.
And that's a state requirement, John, as well as a township requirement.
Well, I also know it's a PennDOT, catch basin, number, 18-inch discharge.
Yeah, and all the pipes in the plan are a minimum 15-inch, anywhere, because that is actually, I'm not sure why it is, but it is the required for, liquid fuels is really what usually pushes the 18-inch requirement. I'm not sure why, or where PennDOT came up with that, but, so liquid fuels money can be used on the public roads, all the pipes are at least 18 inches. Sorry, 15
PennDOT
inches.
will accept from a pond, and I know this from previous, recommendations, 18-inch discharge from a pond into their catch basin, so therefore, they have to have a minimal of 18 inches to be able to work that capacity.
At the right end of the retention pond, what is this here?
That's actually where the discharge pipe is.
No, okay.
That's an easement, because technically our discharge comes across Mr. Lasante's property.
Okay.
So this blue line
He's talking
was
about
an
right there.
easement that was established
Okay.
as part of the subdivision when we split the two lots.
This is a closed pipe?
Yes.
Okay. It's not like a spillway or something?
No, there is an emergency, this is an emergency spillway,
Okay.
but, you know, as long as nothing goes, it's hard to say that anymore. It seems like we had a 500-year storm.
We
right?
Yeah.
we have the
Especially in
100-year
that-
storm every
In that
year.
area.
But yeah, but this,
Okay.
that is the emergency spillway, which will come straight down into the stream, but this is our discharge point.
Okay.
So you'll have a berm, and that pond will just utilize your property, your development.
Yes.
Yeah, with the exception of,
It's not going to accept any water from
No.
further.
no, because and it's,
That's where
like,
the discharge-
basically our property runs right at the top of the ridge lines.
I know that, but on the bottom, because.
No, yeah, everything on is pretty much on the other side of the stream, so it will just be this development getting into our pond.
TJ, because that is a very high flood prone area, this is, you're okay, this is okay okay like this?
Well, that was one of my questions for Chris, and it's in the October 8th letter, was asking him to verify that the stormwater pond, accounted for a flood condition, a tailwater condition, when discharging from the pond back to the stream, and Chris confirms that they did, account for that as part of